last year, instead of saying, here's all these trillions of dollars?
I would have said, what's the fundamental problems here? The fundamental problem is non-disclosure. It's so fraud. So let's have and the rating was not to be trusted. So let's set up a federal financial authority to rate and not rate itself, but to arrange for independent rating and verification and full disclosure on the web of all the securities held by that are being traded in the marketplace.
Yeah, that would be a big thing, just to have transparency.
Transparency, that's step one. Step two is that
stay there, Professor. Professor, we got a break. We'll come back on the other side and get your view and perspective on this. Amazing article out of McClatchy. They got a lot of guts. We'll be right back. I'm Alex Jones. Infowars.com is our website. Stay with us. Until about 40 after, Professor Lawrence J. Kotlikoff is our guest. Professor of Economics, Boston University. Got a book coming out with a great title, Jimmy Stewart is Dead. Boy, is he. Jimmy Stewart was a neat guy. Going back to our guest. Okay, so sir, you're tell us what you think should have happened last year instead of the looting and giving more power to the very banks and regulators that swindled us.
Right. We need to set up a system that's simple, transparent, and safe for public use. And this current system is not, and we are spending our way into what could be a huge problem, hyperinflation potentially. I mean, the potential is really quite substantial for things to get out of control. The way to get to safety is you set up a single federal regulatory body, not 115 or 20, which is what we are. We now have about 115. The president has been calling for about another 5 or so. None of these guys could shoot straight to see the problem, and what we just need is to have a system that's set up that can't fail like the current system has. So you set up a federal regulator to disclose, verify, rate, and provide all this information about the securities, and then you transform all the financial corporations into pass-through mutual fund companies so that no bank can actually, under this proposal, which is called limited purpose banking, can actually borrow money to invest in risky securities. What they can do is they can set up mutual funds for us to invest in. We'll buy shares of the mutual funds, and then the mutual funds will invest in things like mortgages or commercial paper from companies or stocks, foreign stocks as well as domestic stocks. We have to realize that a third of our financial system already is really the mutual fund industry. They hold about $12 trillion in assets. So the glass is plenty full with respect to mutual fund companies being able to intermediate between lenders and borrowers and between savers and investors. So the idea is not just to turn banks into mutual funds, pass-through mutual fund companies that are never in a net exposed position where they're never, if you're not borrowing to invest in risky assets, you can never go under because of a decline in the value of your assets. You're just not exposed. So we're talking about zero net exposure of the banking system, but we're also talking about the insurance industry being treated identically as banks because insurance companies, as we've seen, are engaged in the same kind of security transactions that are banks. You can't really tell the difference between a financial instrument and an insurance policy. They're very similar, essentially identical financial instruments. So what we need to do is make the insurance companies run as pass-through mutual fund companies as well. And they would sell mutual funds that would allow us to buy life insurance policies through the mutual funds and even to buy CDS securities through mutual funds. Here's how.
But Professor, let me ask you this then. What is the plan, or what looks like the dominant re-regulation that's being set up now? Because from what I've read in the newspapers, I'm not trying to pick on the precious Goldman Sachs here, but even Reuters has pointed out they are the most represented in government and in the regulatory system, with Henry Paulson getting up and admitting that 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 it's not a conflict of interest because the Treasury Department gave him a waiver to be involved with Goldman Sachs while he was giving billions to Goldman Sachs directly and through AIG.
Yeah, no, this is like a revolving door, and this is not arm's length. This is a conflict of interest, and it's also they would call it a confluence of interest. They're trying. This is fundamentally corrupt. I don't think Paulson himself is fundamentally corrupt. I think he's basically was a very good public servant. He tried his best. I think he did the wrong thing in the end, or he did some steps, but not the right other steps. He has like $300 million. He doesn't necessarily have to worry about whether Goldman Sachs is going to like him at the margin. So I think we've got to be careful about ascribing motives to individuals who are in a position of trying to save a country they thought was going down the tubes. But the real thing is, how do we get a system set up so that Wall Street can influence Pennsylvania Avenue, and there's no, whether or not the guys from Pennsylvania Avenue go back to Wall Street to work, they're not actually going to be changing the financial system in somebody's favor.
Let's talk more about where the regulation is going versus what you're saying is a good idea. And how do we get rid of these derivatives? Or is there a place in your plan for derivatives? And will anybody ever get in trouble from Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan Chase at the revolving door with the Federal Reserve?
We're on the march.
We're going to your phone calls on a wide range of issues in about 7 minutes. Next hour in studio, Joe Rogan, host of Ultimate Fighting, Comedy Central, you name it, giving us his view on the world today. Professor of Economics, Boston University, Lawrence J. Kotlikoff is our guest. Okay, we got about 7 minutes left, sir.